Hey guys, welcome to Traditional Bow Hunting Wilderness Podcast. This is Jason Samkovic. Today we're going to be talking about grid searching. This is a video that's done by request. Many of you guys have asked for it after I did that video about how I talked about doing what you got to for recovery and how animals can, the whole exit holes can get clogged and you may not have much blood if you're hunting in the rain. There's so many times that relying on a blood trail is an absolute failure. And there's so many people that don't know how to grid search. So we're going to cover it today. Very basic, very simple, but we are going to break it down into very good detail. Let's say, for example, that here is your tree. Okay, here is your tree where you killed that deer from. That's where you shot the deer from. This is the spot where your arrow hit. Okay, that's your shot. And then let's say that you start blood trailing him, and let's say that you have blood for a while. So you're going along and you got blood, and he's going this way, and he goes over here, and he goes and does this. And then here is where you lose blood. We're going to put an L for blood lost right there. So if you've lost blood here, and let's say that you're 100 yards, okay, you went 100 yards from here to here is a 100-yard distance, and you ran out of blood. What are you going to do? A lot of people then, what they will end up doing is they will end up just basically just trying to follow this. Okay, they'll be like, okay, well, I had last blood there. I think he's going that way, and they're going to come out here, and they're going to go here. And then they're going to come back, and they're going to go, maybe he's not there. They're going to walk over here. Then they're going to walk like this. Then they're going to go, maybe he went that way. Now you go that way. Maybe he's back over here. You're going to go, maybe he went this way over here. And then maybe he went out here. Okay, this is what ends up happening is people start doing this stuff, all right? And then they're going to go this way and do that. And then they're going to go, oh, well, there's another trail broke off here. Maybe he went that way. And you end up with this, okay? This does not help you, okay? This is not grid searching. This is how majority of people do this and try and find it. They go, I didn't find any blood. The deer got away. You can see based on the scale, it's another 100 yards, and they have nothing, okay? And then they give up after doing that, okay? And that's not acceptable. Or maybe they go, okay, well, here, we need to go here. We went over and looked there. I didn't see nothing. I even went back to where last blood is, and I went this way, and I didn't see nothing. And I came over here to see if he backtracked, and I went that way, and I didn't see nothing. All right, so they do this scenario here. We're going to take that line out. Get rid of that just because we know that that's 100 yards. But so you can see what ends up happening here. Problem is, let's just take a look at this on a realistic scale and do this. Okay, we know that you shot him there. Let's just go like this, right here, and even take into account that area that that person just say they walked all over that area. They checked that whole thing. Okay, so now we're at a distance of 200 and, let's just call it 200 yards, okay, 200 yards that way, and 150 yards this way. You know, that's their size. I checked the whole area. They did not check the whole area. They didn't even check a tenth of that area. That deer could be here, 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 any place in here, laying there dead, and that person has no idea where that is. It's just, I mean, you can't put enough X's in here. You know, it can be any place in here where it wants to, and you don't see it because your dots didn't take you there. Okay, you never saw it. You didn't walk by it. I'm telling you that I have seen it many times, but you can take a 120-inch deer, a 200-pound buck, and you can literally walk from me to that camera. You can, within 5 feet or 10 feet of him and not see him. I promise you. I've seen it happen many times. So this that most people do is bad. Okay, that sucks, okay? That is not grid searching, but that's what most people do. That's all they know how to do. So how do you grid search? First of all, there are 2 tools that you will need for a grid search. I will write them here for you. One of them is going to be a GPS, or it is going to be an app, okay? OnX or whatever you want, but you will need one of them. You need to have a system of something that does what's called a tracker, like what OnX calls it, or a breadcrumb trail. Okay, I'm just going to put breadcrumb trail. Actually, I think we got to be in there too, but I don't want the space. But so you got a breadcrumb trail, a tracker, something. You need something that is going to, on something electronic, show you a line of where you walk. You want to see every place you put your foot. Dotted, solid, doesn't matter. So when you know you have that with those tools, whether you have it on a GPS or you have it on your app, we now know we got the capabilities. So first thing here we're going to do, so there's our tree we're in. Here's where the shot happens. And then that deer runs and you do the same kind of thing. And here's where you lost blood right here. This is last blood. Okay. But the first thing you're doing is you are marking this spot on your app, GPS or whatever, but this becomes a waypoint. So I'm just going to put a W here for a waypoint right there. The shot location becomes a waypoint as well too. You're marking them along your travel route, okay, as you're blood trailing. You're paying attention and marking some of these spots on here so you see them, and you have last blood marked as a waypoint. So you got some waypoints along this process. Let's again call this 100-yard distance, okay, so this is 100 yards from shot location to where last blood is. What do you do? Okay, what's the better alternative to what Tom, Dick, and Harry just did where they wandered around aimlessly? Used to say in the old days, concentric circles. So they would say find last blood and then start doing this. Okay? You can go all the way around, but for the purpose of me being able to erase it, okay, keep doing this until you find blood. Nothing wrong with that system. Okay, there is not anything wrong except for it does take a lot of time because you're making, right here is not bad. But when you start getting out here, it starts to get pretty exhaustive to cover 100 yards this way and 100 yards this way, and I mean you're talking tremendous amounts of walking at very slow paces looking for any blood. This one line right here could take you 1 hour, okay? 1 hour for that line, 1.5 hours for that line, 2 hours for that line, just for the line itself to make that, and yet you've only covered probably, you know, let's say you just covered, let's say you covered 80 yards, and you're, you know, let's say call this 0.5 hours. So not even counting that one, but you're a half hour. So that's you're 5 hours into it, and you've only made that kind of a swing. Not bad, just exhausting. There are better ways. The grid search becomes better. Plus, this is only taking into account this direction. You don't know if you backtracked or anything like that. But so that gives you, you know, that's not a bad way of going about it, but there is better. And even if you're going to do concentric circles, you want that app or a GPS so that you know that your circles are going like this and spaced correctly instead of going like this. Like that. You see the problems in here? Deer can be here, deer can be here, deer can be here, deer can be there. You see what the problem is with why it's so important to have that GPS or that app, because it shows you exactly what it can show you if yours look like this or look like this. You need that feature on there. Okay, it's vitally important. I cannot emphasize that enough. You need a GPS or you need OnX or some kind of a mapping system. So how do I approach it? Well, I think about the terrain that's there. I take that into consideration, and I take into consideration the direction of his travel. You know, this. Well, he's zigzagging here, right? Yeah, he could be, but he's kind of heading in this direction. You weigh some of the options, see what the blood is doing. But for me, a grid search would look something like this, okay? So I'm going to, in my mind, section off an area like this, okay? And let's say that I'm going to do it, let's just call it 100 yards. So I'm going to go 100 yards, okay? And I'm going to go right here, I'm going to go, we're going to call it square, but I'm going to go 100 yards. Okay, so I got a 100 yard by 100 yard area. As I'm imagining this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk it straight down here the way I think he's going to go until I get to about 100 yards out. If I don't find him, I don't find more blood, I don't find nothing. Now I'm looking for blood, but I'm not so much focusing at a pace of going like this and looking for every drop. I'm more looking for blood, but looking for a deer as well too. I'm grid searching now. I've given up on the blood trail because I lost it and I couldn't find it anymore, and I'm moving on. So I'm going to come down here to do that. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this. Okay, this is what I want it to look like as I go. And I'm going to walk this like this, looking for that deer. Okay, and I'm going to do this like like that, okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing. It's going to keep going. Then if I don't find him over here, I'm going to go back straight over to center, and I'm going to start doing it again here. And I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to grid search this. And I'm going to do this like this, and I'm going to keep going. That's going to show me. So now I know that I've walked almost all of this. Now the reason I say almost is because it is very hard to get these perfect lines like I'm showing in the middle of this. Most likely they're going to look more like you're seeing out here on the dotted sides. And what that means is these are areas I need to go back and check. This area right here, this area right here, this area right here, all of this right here needs to be rechecked. This area needs to be rechecked. This area needs to, you can see where I got these big gaps. I need to double check those. Now you get to a point early on where you realize that you don't even want to have these. So as I'm walking this line, I see I'm over there, I'll actually backtrack my line and come over and make sure I get it perfect. But these are places that between those rows that a deer can be laying dead in that you would have no idea they're there until you actually go back and find them. And you would be amazed how many times we go back and hit these after they do a grid search. They go back and they find that deer in those spots, especially when you get into the thicker stuff. But so say I went 100 yards by 100 yards and I didn't find it. So then now what I end up doing is you have choices to make based on what your assumptions are on the terrain. Do you do another grid here? Do you do another grid here like this? Do you do another grid here? Okay. You're going to do these in whatever order matters to you, but you're going to do these grids, and then you're going to come out here, and then you're going to go, okay, I'm not sure. You could come up and do a grid backwards, like this, another grid backwards like this. You can keep coming down here and do another grid right here. You can come over here and do two grids like this. You see what I'm saying? But each one of these is a gridded section. Now, when it's all said and done, you will have all of those lines in every single grid, all the way, where it'll show that you've walked all of this, okay, will look like you have walked every inch of this, without the gaps. And when you find the gaps, you check the gaps. Now, does this take time? Yes, it does. But most likely, you are going to find that deer somewhere right in here, okay? That's not going to be too bad. At this point, like even here, on this outskirts here, you are 100 plus another, you are 200, usually within 250 yards, you are going to find that deer. But again, let the terrain dictate whether you go to the grid on this side, the grid straight ahead. Let it tell you, is it thicker over here? Is this an open meadow that he probably didn't run through? Is there private property here in houses that he's not going to want to head over to on this side? Who knows? Whatever the case is this a big straight up hill that he's not going to want to go to? Is there over, right here, is there a huge creek or, a big creek that he would have to swim or jump or get up high banks, that would be almost like a wall right here that he's probably not going to go to? There's variables, so let that decide. But this is your grid search, taking it section by section and then walking that section and doing it in those increments. But when you make that first one, so as you do this, we got our lost blood right there, our last blood comes up. Let's kind of just clean that up a little bit here. But as you put that first grid in, which we're not going to use lines anymore, but so you're right here and you put in this first grid right here and you have no luck, okay? Let's say that takes you, let's say it takes you 1.5 hours to check that whole thing, it depends on how thick the terrain is, okay? But when you check that one, then like I said, you'll figure out what you want to do. But then it's just a matter of adding in, like I said, next grid. Then it's adding in the next grid. This kind of thing. It is a very simple process, but on your GPS or on your app, you will see that is all colored in when you did it. You go, okay, next one. You'll color that one all the way in, checking all of these gaps wherever you left inside your grid, and then move on to your other ones. But that is the whole process of grid searching. It is very simple. Try to make it where you're doing, again, depends on the terrain, but the best way to think about it is make sure as you're walking from this line to whatever line is next to you where you just walked, you want to be able to see everything between there. Okay, you don't want any obstructions. And if you're walking this line and your other line is, say it's, let's say it's 10 yards over there, you're doing a 10-yard increment. So let's think about that. If you're able to do 10-yard lines and you're working on a 100-yard thing, I mean, it's only 10 lines you have to do in here. You know, I mean, if you're trying to do a 100-yard square grid, okay, and you can do 10 lines or 10-yard increments, it's only 10 passes. It's not very complicated. But let's say between this pass and this pass, there's a big blowdown right here. It is worth it for you to come down, check it, come down, walk past it, backtrack, come over, check around it, come back, and then go. And then that way you keep your line and you check any of those things. But you need to be able to visually see from one row to the next row. You need to be able to use your eyes, okay, and see that line where you walk. You need to be able to know that. Otherwise, there's a spot in there. If this is too far, and that grid's there and you're here and you can only see to this distance, that deer may be laying right there and you don't know it. So it's important that you can see between your grid rows. That's all there is to it. It is not rocket science in any way. And there is no set method to where your grid goes next. And I've done it many different ways. You may actually do this grid and go, you know what, I'm sure, you know, based on terrain, and if this is, again, last blood right here, you might go, I want to do a grid here like this because I have that thought. Okay, there is no right or wrong, or each situation will vary where their next grid goes, but this is how grid searching works. Very simple process, very easy to do. Just take your time with it, but you would be amazed at the power of this. It is the most powerful trailing tool there is. If I had to give up blood trails or give up grid searching, I would give up blood trails on every single animal. This is way more powerful, way more important, and way more valuable than a blood trail is, especially when blood runs out, exit holes clog, rain comes in. You get into certain types of like grass fields. Grasses are horrible, you know, like meadow type stuff, things like that. Real thin, wiry, round grasses like swamp grasses, mud bottoms of swamp grasses. They don't hold any blood on them. There's nothing to hold a blood drop. They're absolutely brutal. These searches become one of your only ways to do it. And have fun when you got to do this in a cattail marsh, something like that, or a you know, tag elders or dogwood. This is an adventure when you get into the swamps, high ferns, but the results are there. This system rocks. Know how to do a grid search. Get a GPS. I'll put a link to a couple good ones down below for you in the description. But get the app, get the GPS, get whatever you want, and know how to do this. So there you go. Thanks for watching.